Hi, my name is Melissa Hanson. I'm the content editor for Cinemate.com, and this is...
Hi, this is Maria Garcia, and I write for Cineast and Film Journal and Ambassador Magazine.
And today we're going to be talking about our top 10 films of 2012, right?
Yep, 2012.
2012,
Okay.
which there were quite a few,
Yeah.
and
Good movie.
hard to make the list.
Yeah, it certainly was.
It was very difficult, but I think we had a few that we were agreed on,
A few in
but
common.
it's really nice because we have a large variety.
Yeah, I think we do.
You want me to start off with mine?
Yeah,
All
what's
right.
your number 10?
I put on my number 10, I put Prometheus. I am a huge fan of the original Alien series, and I was very much looking forward to this. I really enjoyed it. I loved most everything about it, and it's definitely one of the most commercial on my list, but I loved all the visual effects, I loved the mythology. Of course, there were story things that, you can pick and choose, but all in all, as a fan, I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, my number 10 is a very different movie, but I think one that's also on Melissa's list. It's Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, and it's a directorial debut, Lorene Scafaria. She's the one who wrote Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Great screenwriter, really talented young woman. Quirky characters, terrific love story, and without giving away the ending, Scafaria really sort of stays on topic. This is a story about an asteroid that's going to hit the Earth, and it's Keira Knightley and Steve Carell, and they were just terrific, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it actually did not make it on my list, but
Oh,
I saw it twice, and
Yeah, me
both
too.
times it was affected deeply by it.
Me too. Saw it twice. Because called for an interview, but by that point I think she wasn't giving any, unfortunately, or Melissa and I would have gotten her on tape. Okay.
So back over to me. Mine is definitely one that's on your list. It's Where Do We Go Now?
Uh-huh.
And this film surprised me. I was not expecting. It's about a group of Lebanese women who basically make light of a very tense situation between the men in the village. And, I think that from the very beginning, you get the wonderful sense that it's going to be lighthearted because it starts off with this, really nice, almost like dance through the desert of these group of women, and it's just so, it just kind of gets you in the mood for a really enjoyable sort of journey.
And actually, that's a march from Greek tragedy.
Oh.
That she sort of, you're right. I mean, you get, you see the women, they are in black. So there's kind of like a warning, but the thing that we were disappointed about was that it really didn't get well reviewed, and it's a really interesting film because she presents a solution, a sort of plausible solution to sectarian violence in Lebanon that we both really liked. And this is Nadine Labaki, who made Caramel, which was also a wonderful, wonderful film. Learned a lot about Lebanese women. Yeah. So that was number 8 on my list. Yeah.
So what's your number 9 then?
My number 9 is probably a film, I hope it's available somewhere. It's a documentary by Fernand Melgar, who's a Swiss filmmaker. And it's a very interesting film. He told me in an interview that there are 600,000 people all across Europe who are incarcerated for being illegals. They've never committed a crime. Many of them have lived in a country for 20 years. They've been paying taxes. They've had families. And apparently in Switzerland, they incarcerate them. And at some point, they fly them home. And some of these people who are flown home, in the case of the movie, a lot of African countries, they're separated from their families immediately, and sometimes the family is left with no way to support themselves. And some of them are political, people who are seeking political asylum, not officially, but if they go home, they could be killed. So it's a very important film, very moving, and really very interesting. Like, I was riveted in the sort of Frederick Wiseman fly on the wall kind of thing. And so you get to meet the prisoners, and the really neat thing is the people who work at the prison, he doesn't make them evil. They're like people who work for an institution that doesn't do very nice things, but they're very sympathetic at certain points. So he doesn't blame anybody but the people of Switzerland. So it was a wonderful film.
Well, I think documentaries are been fantastic this year.
Yeah,
just as
I've got a
comment.
couple of them on
Yeah.
my list. I can't believe it. So
Very-
what's your number 9?
I've got on my number 9 another
Oh,
one
that's
that
right.
we
That
have in
was the-
common,
oh,
or
8.
number
That's right,
8.
we're on 8, right?
Loneliest Planet.
Yeah.
We did an interview with Julia Loktev, the director of the film. Just gorgeous film. Very not a lot of dialogue, but all about the action. 100% about body language, and there's a very subtle sort of conflict and subtle sort of thing that happens that it pivots the entire movie. So I was that was very profound for me.
And
That's what I really enjoyed.
It's number 2 on my list.
And we should say that it stars Gael Garcia Bernal and Hani Furstenberg, and this is the filmmaker who did Day Night, which is fabulous. So this is her third film, second narrative film, and yeah, I mean it works as a narrative film, right? It works as a fictional film, but it's actually a very profound film about the position of women in Western society. I mean, it's a really, and those of you who take those kind of dangerous trips, camping trips to places where you have to have a local guide, this film is really interesting in that sense. So.
Yeah, and I know Day Night was on Netflix Instant for a while. It might still be there, so I would check that. and
Really
see.
worth seeing.
Yeah,
She's a
that
very
was-
interesting
That was
filmmaker.
really good.
And those of you who are into Robert Bresson, boy, this is one of the filmmakers that is picking up the mantle.
So I did that. Next is you, number 7.
Yeah, actually Loneliest Planet was number 2 on mine. Okay, so we're on number 8. That was Nadine Labaki. That's what I had.
Yeah.
And so number 7 for me was Corpo Celeste, which means heavenly body in Italian. And it's an Italian language film. Alice Rohrwacher is her name. And it's just a lovely coming-of-age movie. It's about Marta, and Marta grew up in northern Italy. And her mom loses her job, and it's her mom and she and her sister, and so they have to move to southern Italy, and where her mom grew up in sort of very provincial town. And Marta's a pretty sophisticated young woman, about 13, and it's just one of those rare films that like a teenager could watch and adults will just love, because just wonderful characterization, beautiful writing, edgy filmmaking. Just has everything. Yeah. So what's yours? Is that you're on 7 or 8
I'm
for
on
you?
7.
Okay.
Take This Waltz. It is currently on Netflix Instant.
Wonderful.
It's with Seth Rogen and Michelle Williams and Aaron Abrams.
I think so.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that's the other guy in the film. I really enjoyed it because a lot of romantic, and this isn't a romantic comedy, but there's romance involved in it. And instead of taking you through a journey of one relationship, it takes you through a journey of 2. It actually shows you the transition from a girl, going from one to another, and how you're the same person in every relationship, so there are going to be things that are the same, but you're interacting with a different person. So I really enjoyed just seeing both those sides of it.
Yeah, and it's, in some ways a real chick flick, and we love that.
And it's gorgeous.
It is. It's beautifully made.
It
No,
is. The
absolutely.
color, and it's
Yeah.
it's very vibrant, and you can almost see the heat on screen, because you can tell it's just a
Vibrant
really,
colors.
really
Yeah.
warm day.
Well, talk about documentaries. Number 6 on my list is Words of Witness by Mai Iskander. And Mai made, some of you may remember Garbage Dreams, about a group of people, actually an artist who helped a group of people do artwork from the garbage piles that they were working in, because they were poor and lived there. And that was a wonderful documentary, and this one is just as good. It's about an Egyptian woman. Her name is Heba, and 3 months she gets this job as her first job as a journalist. 3 months before the demonstrations begin in Tahrir Square, and we get a picture of the fact that there is an Egyptian. There are free presses in Egypt. And she has more trouble with her mother actually than she does being a journalist, because her mother says that nice girls are not out at night in Tahrir Square. And so we get a picture of Heba's family and her mother and her sister, and some of the challenges that young Egyptian women face. It's a really wonderful documentary. It's at Human Rights Watch, and I hope that, I'm pretty sure that it will be somewhere on the web, but the filmmaker is Mai Iskander.
The next on my list is a foreign film that I loved. I've seen it twice already. It's called Headhunters, and it's Scandinavian, and or maybe it's Finnish, but anyway, the story is it starts out somewhat, boring, and it's kind of a con man. He has one life that he's trying to support with another by stealing art and reselling it, and he gets caught up in a really sort of crazy little just with his wife, who he thinks is cheating on him with this someone else, and it just turns into it goes in all kinds of different directions, and it's violent in some ways, but then really funny in others, and I just really enjoyed all the crazy directions it went without, and it all purposed the story.
Oh.
It wasn't the kind of thing where things just happened for no reason. Everything was happening for a specific reason, and it just kept you on the edge of your seat. It was very fun.
Sounds fun. Well, I have another documentary at number 5. It's Alison Klayman's Ai Weiwei, Never Sorry, which opened in New York for a couple of weeks. It's a wonderful documentary about the Chinese artist and activist Ai Weiwei. Klayman got incredible access for this documentary. I mean, she just went everywhere with him. He has an affair, and she even talks about that with him. So interesting about Alison. She went to China after she graduated college, just because she wanted an adventure, and she ended up learning Chinese within a year, which I think is incredible. And she had a friend from college who was working in a gallery, and she happened to call Alison and say, listen, I could use your help because I've got all these pictures to go through of this guy named Ai Weiwei. And she said, why don't you come down and visit me? And she was in a different part of China. Alison went, met the artist, and just found her subject. And so a wonderful debut documentary, first film. It's just amazing, beautifully edited. Just incredible talent.
I was just going to say, that's also on Netflix Instant
It
now.
is, great.
And Headhunters is on Instant. As you can tell, I frequent that website quite a bit. My next one is a film that was not, kind of was here and there, and just a blip for Tribeca Films. It was For Ellen, starring Paul Dano, and what I really enjoyed about it is that he carries the entire film. There's barely almost any interaction with other people, and yet you can really see the emotion and everything he's handling. And it starts out as this this punk kid who he kind of is a rock star, and he has an ex-girlfriend who suddenly wants full custody of a child that he's never even seen. And being this punk kid, he's like, oh well, I have a right to her too. And the maturity that happens just in the short amount of time is it's very emotional. I really enjoyed that.
Okay, so we're up to 4. Okay, number 4 is This Is Not a Film, which is about Jafar Panahi, who some of you may know, Iranian filmmaker, did The Circle and Crimson Gold. He is facing a jail term in Iran. He has been prohibited from making films. And so he made this film called This Is Not a Film with a friend of his. And it's sort of a day in the life of Panahi, who is interestingly babysitting his daughter's iguana, who is equally a prisoner in his Tehran apartment. So there's some wry humor in the film, but of course it's a very serious film about censorship in Iran, and it's really worth seeing. So I think I know it's on the web, but I'm not sure where. Okay.
And you know, the next four, you know, I know when I started out this list, I said most commercial. I'm totally going back on that because basically the rest of them are very commercial.
Okay. This is your number 3 now?
This is my number 4.
Number 4, I'm sorry, okay.
And you know, these top 4 here kind of all could
Meld
be
together,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's very difficult for me to kind of make a number 1. But I put on here Looper.
Okay.
It was such a neat fantasy time travel in a totally different way.
Oh.
I really loved it. I'm a sucker for those kind of time traveling science fiction.
I like too, yeah.
Love it. And you know, a lot of the times they catch themselves. You know, you're like, yeah, you know, but the way this happened, the way the story progressed was just amazing. And you know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a young Bruce Willis was actually quite good.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say we're on number 3.
Number 3, I have Pablo Larraín's No. And Larraín is a Chilean filmmaker, and you may know him from the 2 previous films. It's actually a trilogy. This is the 3rd film. The first one was Post Mortem, and the second was Tony Manero. Post Mortem takes place just as Salvador Allende is killed, and Pinochet begins, the dictator takes power. And here in No, it's about the campaign. This is a really wonderful story, and it's true. There was a national referendum in Chile, and the vote was whether Pinochet should stay in office or not. This happened in 1988. And this is a wonderful script by the guy who wrote The Maid. So it's very funny. And it's the 2 campaigns, the No campaign and the Yes campaign. And Gael Garcia Bernal is very good, as usual. And Alfredo Castro, who was in the 2 previous films, plays his boss here. And he's sort of a Pinochet guy. And it's just humorous, but those of you who like political films, this also has a very serious message and is, in fact, probably a little cynical. But a really, really wonderful, done in a period style. He actually used this, Sergio Armstrong, his cinematographer, used a camera that is obsolete. So they had to buy 10 of them in order to get parts for the camera. And he did all of this so that it would look like a 1980s era film. Yeah, really wonderful aesthetically, so you should check this one out.
I've heard a lot of good things about that.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Really good movie.
I have next on my list The Master, which got a lot of attention when it was originally released. Was that 2 months ago or so?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, and it stars Philip Seymour Hoffman, Joaquin Phoenix. I think Amy Adams is in it, and you know, it got a lot of attention because it was, you know, supposedly about Scientology, and but it's more just about a very powerful person. You know, Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a man who is extremely charismatic and is easily. I hesitate to use the word manipulates, but it's basically what he's doing with everyone. And Joaquin Phoenix is completely gives himself to him in that sort of way. And they are the perfect complement to one another, and no one understands that at all. So that, I think that's what I really liked about it, is that the two men had a relationship that nobody could understand how that it could even work, but yet there was something there between them. So that was why that made it on my list.
Okay. Well, my number 2 was Loneliest Planet, so why don't we just go to your number 2 and
Okay.
then we'll go to my number 1.
I'm trying. These last are going to be tough
Melt
for me.
together.
Yes.
Yeah.
I put Argo on my list.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I felt that I was on the edge of my seat most of the entire time. Knowing what was happening still made me, bite my nails and I think a lot of it too is, when you're in an audience with, there's so many people, and this is one of those like theater experiences, because you just felt like everyone was, at the same
Even though you
moments.
knew the way it ended.
Even though you knew the way it ended, and the lots of comic relief, and I just thought it was I really enjoyed it.
See, I just wanted to get into the comedy part of the movie. I wanted it to be a comedy. I just, I loved that banter. It was a wonderful cast.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a really good cast. Well, my number 1, and really this, for me, like the 2 to 5 sort of melted together. But Nuri Bilge Ceylan's Once Upon a Time in Anatolia is absolutely the best film I saw in 2012. It was released in January, so, but it is, I believe it's on Amazon. Turkish filmmaker, some of you may remember Climates. This is his 6th feature. It's about a murder investigation set in a small Turkish village, and it's just absolutely beautifully written and directed. Jury prize at Cannes. This is a filmmaker, this is definitely for you Robert Bresson fans. It's a slow movie, a lot of humor, especially about yogurt, but it really is about a murder investigation. And the characters, what I loved about it was I felt like I was totally immersed in the Turkish countryside. And I have not been there yet, but I feel like I know it. And these characters were in both universal, but I still had the sense that I was immersed in that culture. It's just a really very, very finely made film. So you have your number 1?
And my number 1 is one that I would, if you would have told me this a year ago, I would, there's no way that I would have even thought it would be on my top 10. I chose Les Miserables. And for anybody that knows anything about my film taste, they would not suspect this film to be on the list whatsoever. I generally, don't like any musicals. I'm not a fan of singing in film for story. It's never affected me in any sort of way. But with this film, I think the combination of how grand it was, and the songs themselves are extremely lovable and extremely accessible, and just get in your head right away. And I still find myself humming things.
Huh.
And I still find the melodies in other songs now. Even I haven't seen, it's been a couple of weeks since I've even seen the film. The performances, Hugh Jackman, is amazing. Anne Hathaway, even though her role isn't even as large, is extremely just very emotional. And although they're singing in the film, it's not, the characters don't break out in song. The entire film is them singing what's happening, but it's not sung as if it's, this fly-by-night thing. They're singing as if they're talking, and that's how they communicate. So, and it's also recorded live.
And this is a big screen movie, right?
Well,
So
yeah,
we should
exactly.
mention that.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
it comes out Christmas Day.
Yeah, absolutely, you should see it at the movies.
It's really
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about it. It is long, but you're gonna love every minute of it.
Yeah. We just want to say that there are some films, I think, on both of our lists that you really want to see on a big screen.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
especially Loneliest Planet, if you can get to see it on a big screen.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these movies, Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, I think is much more effective on a big screen. So go to the movies.
Yes, we definitely an advocate of seeing everything on the big
Yeah.
screen. Not only for how big the screen is, but for me, it's going into a movie theater and dedicating the time to seeing something.
Absolutely.
You know, you're at
Yes.
home and you get distracted by the phone, you get distracted
right.
by, you know, everything around you, and you don't necessarily get to sit and watch
That's right.
something beginning to end without taking your concentration off it.
Absolutely.
And luckily, that's what we can still get in a movie theater.
And give the artists their due so that you're, you know, really immersed in their work. So go to the movies.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.